Welcome to Talk to Me Baby, the show that believes that knowing yourself and living in accordance with who you really are is the biggest asset you can possess in life. Do you feel like you are suffering through life? Situations just keep coming at you. It's one thing after another. You're exhausted, you're tired, you're just over it. Today, we are going to talk about how society glorifies suffering and how you might be unintentionally living on the struggle bus and making things harder and more complicated than they need to be. We're going to zoom in first. We're going to start with a personal story. So, if you listened to the first episode of this podcast, you may remember that I had a bathroom leak. And I wasn't sure if they were going to have to remove the vanity to get to the bathroom leak or not. They did. They fixed it. It was a main pipe in the building. And just this past week, the workers came to finally patch up the bathroom, right? The walls had been torn open and all the piping and all that stuff was exposed. Whatever goes back there was all out there in the open. And the workers came and they closed it up. And I thought, great, now I get to think about renovating that space. I get to think about moving forward with that. And then, literally the morning after, not even 24 hours later, I had flooding in my apartment. It came from upstairs, the whole situation. It was raining down water in my AC closet and it was coming underneath the doors. I mean, it was just a whole thing. I was vacuuming up water and dumping it out for an entire hour straight. It was quite the workout. And, part of me just felt so resentful. Not really mad at the universe that this was happening, but just so completely over it. Because what you might not know is that I actually had flooding in 2020. So this isn't new. It was a similar situation then. And, honestly, I'm a very positive person. I try to be. I try to offer myself as much of a possibility to shift my perspective whenever needed and kind of see the silver lining and try to see things from an alternative view to make myself feel better. That's a pretty regular and consistent practice that I've been doing since I was a kid. And I I was struggling. I was struggling to find the silver lining. And there's a big part of me that is just done. I'm sick and tired of doing everything on my own, of having to handle everything on my own. My inner child is like sick of the fact that I have to grow up. My inner child's like, I don't want to grow up. I just want to be taken care of. I don't want to have to think about anything. I don't want to have to do anything. I just want somebody to take care of my life for me. And while I can understand why that part of me feels that way, it's actually very disempowering. And in a way, I'm glad that this happened because it helped me to uncover this. And it helped me to uncover why, in this particular area of my life, I've kind of been allowing myself to struggle. And it trickles into some other areas of my life as well, where it's just been challenging for so long that that's now the default for me. It kind of feels like this struggle. I'm kind of stuck in this feeling of it's challenging, it's challenging, it's challenging. And I want to share this because every emotion that you feel serves a purpose. Your thoughts will create your reality. What you repeatedly think is what you will end up with. It might not be in the exact way that you're thinking about it, but if you are somebody who's anxious and you're constantly thinking about, worrying about situations, you will create situations to worry about in your life. Your thoughts will create your world, and your emotions are there because they are supposed to guide you. It's a vital sign for you to know when you're out of sync. It's a way for you to understand, okay, where am I? What am I really thinking about? And it's an opportunity for you to explore that and figure out, okay, why do I feel like this? Because any negative pattern, right, that you feel, whether that's frustration, anger, discouragement, resentment, all of these are forms of suffering. And I want you to think about that for a second. What emotions, negative emotions, do you feel quite often? Whether that is being upset or being annoyed or being irritated or being frustrated. There may be situations in your life that are causing you to feel that way, and that's 100% valid. That is absolutely valid. But our emotional responses are a choice. And if you feel like you're in this loop, and you might not even be aware of it, but you're in this loop, chances are that loop is benefiting you in some way. So if you are walking through life and you are living this blame game where you feel like it's everybody else's fault and they're the ones that need to change and they're the ones that should do things differently and they're the ones that need to do this and this and this, and or if you just feel frustrated at life, if you feel annoyed, if you feel resentful like I did and still do because I'm working through this as we speak, real time, okay? What is the upside for me feeling this way? Because there's absolutely an upside. You might have to dig for it. You might have to journal through this. It may be something that is subconscious, but there is an upside for you keeping yourself in that place. Maybe it's the fact that, my case, if I sit here and I'm just resentful, then that doesn't mean that I have to take responsibility, right? Because I could choose to just recognize that these are things that just happen. And the fact that I am a grown woman and I have to take care of myself and I have to do all of the life things, right? And that right now, at least I'm doing them alone. And I have friends and family. I have the support of the people around me. But at the same time, there's nobody here to take out the trash. You know what I'm saying? It's me. It's me. I'm the one that takes out the trash. I'm the one that waters the plants. I'm the one that cooks for myself. I'm the, like all of the things, a lot of those things I have to do for myself. Not all of them. Okay. I have somebody that cleans for me. I have somebody who folds my clothes for me. God, because I'm one of those people who would leave the laundry piled up in the corner of the bedroom somewhere for like all of eternity. But by me choosing not to take responsibility and find joy in that, I'm kind of keeping myself at this level. And I'm not allowing myself to progress, and I'm allowing myself to be in a disempowered state. I am allowing myself to stay in victim mentality because then I don't have to take responsibility for anything. If I'm a victim of life, then I don't have to take responsibility for what's happening to me, how I feel about it, and what I'm going to do about it. So the other flip side to why we potentially choose to live in that negative emotion, and when I say choose, it's not necessarily something you're doing consciously, but when we examine what is that payoff, part of it, especially if it has to do with you stepping into a version of yourself that is different, maybe going beyond what you've had before, maybe going beyond what your family has had before, or what your friends have had before, or the people around you have had before. Part of being addicted to the struggle is so that we are accepted by society. Because society loves a good struggle story. We don't want to hear stories of the artist that put in zero work and just had this brilliant idea and wrote a hit song in 5 minutes and it ended up being an all-time classic. We don't want to hear that story. We want to hear the story of the person who was slumming it in a studio apartment, living with 10 people, playing on street corners and whatever gig they could until they had their lucky break and then it all worked out for them, right? And if you don't believe me, think about just the way in language in general, we glorify difficult things. Nothing that's worth having comes easy. That's one of the main phrases that you'll hear. Everything worth having takes hard work and struggle. And I'm not discounting the fact that things take work. But I think that the way that we view work is a little twisted in society because work can also be very enjoyable. But it's almost like we have to put this spin of negativity or difficulty on it for us to feel like we are worthy and deserving of praise, riches, love, acceptance, whatever comes with accomplishing that thing. So, for example, I don't know how to knit. Okay, this seems complicated to me, but it was very easy for me to just buy this sweater. If I had to knit this sweater, if I saw somebody knitting this sweater, to me, I would think, that's a lot of work. But for that person who's doing it, they might be even enjoying the process because yes, it involves work, quote unquote. It probably takes hours, but there's also enjoyment in it. It's probably very relaxing. It feels good to have a skill like that and exercise that skill and work through that skill, being actively engaged with a project like that. It takes attention to detail. It takes dexterity. It's not something that everybody can do. It's something that you learned and you should be proud of the fact that you can do it. And at the end, you have this beautiful sweater to show for it. But when you apply that kind of an example to bigger things, to bigger societal things. It's like we want to hear about the struggle. We don't want to hear about the trust fund kid that is part of generational wealth that started an app and is now even richer than they were before. Like, nobody wants to hear that story. They want to hear the story of the person that grew up with nothing and had to fight tooth and nail and was working 3 jobs and then also happened to do an app. Who do you think, just do a litmus test with yourself. Who do you think deserves wealth more? You probably think the person who had to struggle deserves it more. And at the end of the day, it's not a contest. Neither of them deserves it more or less. But we will typically say things, especially about people who have wealth, like, oh, well, they were born with the silver spoon in their mouth. They were born with it. That person has great genetics. That's why they're so naturally slender. They don't have to work for it. They get to eat whatever they want and they don't have to suffer. They don't have to deal with it. Even in Hollywood, you see a lot of children of actors and things like that that come up and it's like, oh, yeah, but they only got that gig because of their XYZ relative, because of their father, because of their mother. They're not really that talented. Meanwhile, there are all these talented people who don't have those opportunities. We like it when somebody has struggled to accomplish things. We don't like it when things come easy. When things come easy for other people, like in these examples I've mentioned, we judge them. We don't even appreciate what it is that they accomplish as much, perhaps, simply because of the perception that they didn't have to work for it. They didn't have to suffer for it and they didn't have to struggle for it. And the truth is that things can be easy, but that's an uncomfortable thought for a lot of us because we don't want to get kicked out of society and kicked out of the tribe. These are fears and anxieties that come from that feeling of being rejected in a very big way. So even people who have massive success, who are naturally gifted and naturally talented at what they do, I feel like when they tell their stories, there's even a subconscious pressure to not embellish, but to speak about the parts that were hard more than speaking about the parts that were easy. Because nobody wants to hear the part that was easy. We want to hear about the part where it was like you had to walk 15 miles in the snow both ways and, uphill and you didn't have light and you had to do everything with a chisel. And that's how you wrote the great novel that just got published. We don't want to hear, you know what? I was sitting at home one day. I had a day off work. I have this really nice, cushy job. And this idea came to me and I just wrote the story and that's it. Nobody wants to hear that story. And that's even a very popular story writing framework where your hero has to have challenges along the way. And I'm not discounting the benefit of challenges. I think that all of the negative things in our lives are helping us in some way. They're helping us refine our own understanding of what it is that we want. They're helping us understand ourselves at a deeper level, right? The situation that I had with the flooding, it has made it crystal clear to me that I am never, ever, ever going to live in a place where there's flooding. Like that is a very intense desire within me now. The building was joking with me. They're like, you're the Captain Planet girl that's like, water is your superpower. I don't want it. Okay. I want to dry as the Sahara in here. That is a very strong desire that has now been born within me. And it's much stronger than before because I never had to worry about it before. This situation is also giving me the opportunity to see where I'm keeping myself stuck and where I'm maybe not taking on responsibility, and how even in a weird way, this benefits me because it makes me feel like, oh, well, it was me and I get to throw myself a pity party, right? I want to zoom out now, and I would like to share with you a quote from somebody who I think most people would feel some kind of way about, and that's Machiavelli. Because we know Machiavelli was savage. Let's just say that. And the Machiavelli quote is, develop the strength to do bold things, not the strength to suffer. Now, he meant this more in the context of don't be lazy, get off your butt and go do things. The first half of this quote is make mistakes of ambition and not mistakes of sloth. Develop the strength to do bold things, not the strength to suffer. So his original meaning was do your stuff, handle your stuff. Don't be a sloth, don't be lazy. But I would like to offer a different and alternative understanding of that, because I think that in society, we glorify the struggle and we glorify strife and we extend our sympathies and we feel for those who have had to suffer. We feel that then when they get good things that they deserve them more. It's a way for us to explain and validate our own sense of worthiness, because we are not really taught to believe in our own worthiness. We're only taught to believe in our worthiness if all these bad things have happened first. Then you're worthy. You're not worthy just because you exist. And that's actually the biggest lie that we as humanity have ever told ourselves. You are worthy simply because you are here and you are breathing and you exist. And you don't have to prove your worthiness through your suffering. And you don't have to perpetuate a feeling of suffering just to feel like you matter and that the situations that you're going through matter. You matter and you are worthy without any suffering and anything that you might be going through. And you deserve the things that you want. You deserve to have every single thing that you want. All of those dreams are for you. You don't have to struggle to get there. Is it going to take hard work? Yeah, probably. I don't know what it is that you want. You want to be an acrobat? I don't think that's that easy, right? You want to start a Fortune 500 company? That's not going to happen without some level of intensity and determination. But you can actually have fun throughout it. And at every challenge that you face, you have the choice to look at it from a different perspective. And you can sit there like I was, throwing myself a pity party, just resenting life, or you can choose to look at it differently and say, you know what? I'm going to take the hit and I'm going to be better for it. And I'm going to use this to help me examine whatever's going on, and I'm going to be better. You don't have to indulge in your suffering to feel like you are important or to even excuse what's going on in life and excuse why you're in the same place. If you want to, you can develop the strength to do bold things, which in my mind, and this is the alternative I would like to offer, it's developing the strength to be disciplined in your mind and to not let those thoughts guide you. It's the discipline to be able to reflect and say, okay, why am I keeping myself in this position? Why am I keeping myself stuck? Why am I keeping myself in a state of frustration, anger, resentment, holding on to grudges? Why am I doing that? What benefit is there in that? How is that serving me in some underhanded way? How is that benefiting me? And how is that giving me an out for something else? And then you can develop the strength to do those bold things, but don't develop the strength to suffer. Just because you feel like you have to, because you feel like that's tied up into your worthiness, because you feel like you're going to be accepted by others, because you're suffering. You don't have to do that. And that is what I have for you today. I hope that you develop the strength to do bold things, to know that you can get just as far in life through enjoyment as you can through suffering, that you don't have to suffer, that you don't have to even view obstacles and challenges as you suffering, and that the situations that you find yourself in, you have power to change and you have power to direct your emotions and your thoughts about them in a way that's more productive and in a way that feels better to you. I'm your host, Emily the Adamas. This has been your episode of Talk to Me, Baby. I will talk to you later.